Ta-da! Here's the Isaac's public transport etiquette tier list. Alright, this is what we're gonna do today. This is what all the buzz is all about, alright? So I know that different countries and different places have different rules in public transport, but I assume there's probably some universal truths when you go to when you pick up a bus or when you pick up go to the subway, metro, trains, all that sort of thing. I assume there is a certain there is a certain common ground between all of them, and I think the most important of all, at least here in Brazil, one of the most important things is the priority seating, right? Which is the seats reserved for like elderly people or pregnant women or people with movement disabilities, all that sort of thing. And there's a certain etiquette to it, right? Like, yes, there is the rule that you should always give your seat to the elderly, but also the police is not gonna arrest you if you don't. So there are some jackoffs who sit in priority seats and just stay there, and then if by some twist of fate they're confronted about it, they say something like, actually I have a leg thing or whatever. You know, you've probably seen this scene before. And so we're gonna rank the Isaac characters by how they behave. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiers. Used to be 6, but I decided to cut one out. So there's the guy that doesn't sit in the public transport. It leaves the priority seats open, leaves the normal seats open. He's like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm an adult. My legs work just fine. I don't have any problems. I can just stand up here and leave the seats for people who need it, right? That's the ultimate nice guy. Then there's people who sit in the normal spots. You know, this is like most of the people. They sit in the normal spots, but if like a pregnant woman appears and there's no other place for her to sit, they get up. This is 90% of the population, I think. But there are some people who sit in the normal seats, and when a pregnant woman appears or an old lady appears, they don't get up. They're like, well, maybe the person besides me will get up. Or, they pretend they're sleeping, they look at their phone, they're like, oh, I didn't notice, I'm sorry, but they don't offer it. Then there's the jagoffs who sit in the priority seats, of course, and then people in the priority seating. There was one more tier, which was people who do sit in the priority seats but do offer it to people when they appear, like to the elderly, because it's if there are no priority people there, you can kind of sit there, but when they appear you gotta get up. But I was like, you know what, there's a lot of overlap in the normal seats area, so I'll just leave it here. 5 tiers, all right, 5 tiers. We're gonna rank him. I love making tier lists, man. I think I'm just gonna get into it. I'm just gonna start. So the first character here is Isaac, and he's very obvious, very simple. Oh, before I start, there is actually one rule that I must set. In certain countries, at least in my country, children under 6 are allowed to sit in the priority seats, and children and their guardian, their parent or whatever. If the children's too small, she doesn't really know how to behave. She can get hurt in the subway or in the bus or whatever. So we're not gonna use that rule for the characters, because otherwise 90% of them would be here because actually would be here because well they are all 5. Some of them are demons and all that, but they're mostly all 5, so they're all here. So we're gonna assume they're on the same playing ground as most adults. It's a normal, regular adult with regular age, like I don't know, like an 18-year-old, basically. Yeah. So let's get into it. Isaac. Isaac's very easy. He does not sit in the public transport. Isaac's the stereotypical nice guy. He's a very nice kid, raised in a Christian household. He's like very concerned about not sinning. He doesn't want to go to hell. He just wants to do the good things. Be the good guy always. So yeah, he does not sit. This one's pretty easy. It's pretty normal. But we're going into the second character, and this is already very hard. Okay, so as we all know, all characters are Isaac dressed up in different outfits. All characters. No exceptions. But I'm not gonna use that rule because if they're all Isaac, then they all go here, right? But Maggie is an interesting case because Maggie is Isaac cosplaying as his mother, which is super weird. But if Isaac is Maggie cosplaying as his mother, then do I assume it's Isaac's personality or do I assume it's his mother's personality? Do I treat it as a different character altogether? Do I invent a Maggie personality? It is confusing. It's quite a conundrum in how to judge these characters. Do I take into account their religious counterparts? For example, does Judas? Do I take into account real life Judas? I don't know, but we'll get to Judas later. For Maggie, I think what I'll decide on is that it's a different character, yes, but it is a character that resembles his mother in every sense. So it's his mother's personality, it's his mother's appearance. It's not exactly his mother, but it could have been like his mother during her childhood. So Maggie, I imagine she is here. Why? Well, alright, so Isaac's mom seems like the type of person to get into a lot of arguments at random. She seems like a very mean old lady. And Maggie, the child here, is basically the same, but she's not an old lady. She's a child, but with the personality of an old lady. So, you know, she'd sit in the priority seat and people would be like, hi, can you get up? And she'd be like, no, I deserve it and it's your fault. You're all wrong with this country. I hope president, whatever country he's in, I hope the president bans you. And then that's what I imagine Maggie to be like. At least Isaac's mom is like that, so. Alright, Cain. Cain's bland. Can I just be honest? Cain's a bland character. Cain is super bland. He's just Isaac with an eye patch. He's a bit shadier than Isaac, but I don't know. He's a normal guy, I think. That's how I usually interpret him. I don't have a lot to say about Cain. Cain and Lazarus are very bland. They don't have a lot going for him. Okay, so let's just keep going. Judas. Now, Judas is an interesting one. Judas is evil. We all know that. But it's not that much of an easy here, right? I don't think he's exactly here. I think that Judas tries to be a bit more coy about it, you know? He is evil deep down, but he is like kind of secretly evil. He couldn't betray Jesus if he was outright evil, right? That makes sense, right? It makes sense to use real Judas to judge game Judas, doesn't it? I'm gonna assume it does. It's my tier list, alright? So I think he doesn't offer his seats. I think Judas is the type of guy that sits in the normal seats and doesn't get up because he's kind of evil and he couldn't be bothered. But he disguises it. He's the type of person to pretend he's sleeping. He's the type of person to, I don't know, look at his phone and be like, oh my god, I didn't see you there. And he does sit in the priority seats, but I do think that if an old lady shows up, he begrudgingly gets up. That's my assessment of Judas as a character. That's what I think. So yeah, Judas doesn't offer his seats, but if he's in the priority seats, he does get up. But he doesn't offer to get up. He's confronted by it, and then he gets up. Okay. Blue Baby. Now, Blue Baby is an interesting one as well. Because, see, Blue Baby is just a dead baby. He's a suffocated baby. There's nothing to it. How do I evaluate this? Actually, this is super easy. He's a lot priority seating because he's dead. He's dead. Being suffocated or suffocating is a form of injury, and injured people are allowed to go into the priority seating. So if he's dead, well, he can't go. I mean, of course, as soon as possible, he'd be transferred into, like, the ambulance, but if for any reason it's kind of a long trip, yeah, he can sit in the priority seats. Or the normal seats, or whatever he wants, man. He's dead. He can sit in the floor if he wants. Actually, maybe he shouldn't. It's kind of dangerous to leave him on the floor, I think. Yeah, Blue Baby. He can do whatever he wants. Hang on, I'm getting cold. I'm gonna put on a jacket, a bit of a hoodie, because it's cold. It's cold outside. Alright, so Eve. I'm gonna do my assessment of Eve while I do this. Now, I'll be honest. A lot of this is like speculation on their personalities because, again, they are not really meant to have personalities. So it does get a bit. I can make a kind of a mean assessment of a character based solely on their appearance. And that's not exactly a nice thing to do, but it's what I gotta do. So Eve seems like the type of, she's like one of those really gloomy chicks, goth girls that, you know, are just kind of like, whatever, like, you know, just don't care about the word. I'm emo and I'm, which to me is the kind of dismissive attitude that does something like this. But I do not think she's like inherently evil. I don't think she'd fight for the priority seat, right? She is probably the type of person to like sit in the priority seat and then mess with her phone and then just never look up. And then if someone appears and is like, hey, can you please give this seat to this pregnant lady? She gets up, doesn't say a word, but then looks at her phone and sends like a text to her friends like, oh my god, like people make me get up out of my priority seat. That's so bullshit. That's what I imagine her But yeah, she doesn't offer it willy-nilly. She has to like be confronted about it. Is what I imagine of her. I mean, she does have a demon inside of her, so you know, of course she'd be an asshole. Of course. What do you expect, right? Anyway, yeah, that's what I think about this one. And I think this one is one of the most accurate ones, to be perfectly honest with you. These two are very accurate, and this one as well. But just look at her face, man. She's the type. She's exactly that type. Oh, damn. Alright. Samson. Samson is also a little bland, but not as bland as the others. However, I do think he just sits on the normal spots. No, actually, he does not sit. That's my assessment of the character. Here's Samson. Here's his stereotype in the subway or in the bus. He always stands up because he's very strong and athletic. So he's like, I don't need to sit down, and like standing up, that's exercise, is good for you. You should all stand up, blah blah blah. You know, he doesn't because he feels he doesn't need to. And he's right. He's right. He doesn't need to sit down, but so yeah, he does not sit. And also, here's a secondary assessment, and I think this is also true of the other Samson, but I think it's mostly true of this one. No, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's do normal Samson first. So I think normal Samson gets in fights in the subway for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's, you know, valid reasons, like, oh, Eve's hogging the priority seats. He just goes there and is like, hey, Missy, aren't you gonna get up? And then she's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. He gets in fights, you know, with the assholes in the subway. But also, he gets in fights over accidental stuff, I think. When, like, someone bumps into him in the subway, he's like, hey, watch it. You know? That's what I think he do. Like, just because he's here, doesn't mean he's exactly a nice guy. You know? So yeah, he's kind of a cranky guy, but not an asshole, just a cranky guy, is what I imagine of his character. Alright, Azazel. Dude, we're blasting through these. Azazel. Azazel's a tough one. Azazel's a tough one because he's a demon. I don't know, man. He wouldn't really sit at the subway, would he? He'd be flying, wouldn't he? How do I judge a demon going to taking the bus, man? How do I judge that? Demons on the train? Like, I guess the easy answer is that he wouldn't sit. Again, not because he's a nice guy, but because he doesn't need to? Oh, this is a weird one. This is a weird character. Yeah, he doesn't need to sit. Am I back? I'm back. Alright. Whew. That was scary. Anyway, I'm gonna keep going. Because this is going on YouTube, so I don't wanna be too... I don't wanna lose a lot of time in this technical shenanigans. Anyway, Lazarus. As I said, Lazarus is super bland. He just sits in the normal spots and gives them to the people that need it. He's a good kid. He's a good kid. He respects the rules. And even, I imagine that even for people who aren't exactly like, you know, allowed priority seating, he still gives the place, like, oh, maybe someone's carrying a big bag And then he's like, oh, you know what, you're carrying a big bag, you can sit down, it's okay, it doesn't matter. It's what I imagine Lazarus would do, but he's a bit bland, I can't really gather much from his character. Right, Eden. I don't really get Eden. Like, he's an angel, which means he's good. I think he wouldn't sit either. It's funny how, like, when I think about it, a lot of the demon characters don't really sit. A lot of the supernatural characters don't really sit, mostly because the idea of what's the word? God, the idea of supernatural beings in the subway just is wild to me. It's just crazy, so I don't really know where to put him. But like, can you imagine, like, alright, if you see like a superhuman with like blonde flowing hair and glowing eyes, will he be sitting down? Will he be sitting? He wouldn't be sitting, would he? He wouldn't be like just waiting for the bus. He'd be like superhuman, chest puffed open, and he'd be like in a super awesome stance that he doesn't get out of balance. Regardless of what the bus does a jump, and then he's like doesn't care. That's what I imagine Eden would do, like being a superhuman. He'd just be the craziest guy ever, like one of the most badasses of the badasses. Not the Lost. The Lost is the same thing. He doesn't sit because he doesn't have legs. He flies. He's a ghost, and ghosts don't need to sit down, man. It's basic. Ghosts don't sit down. Yeah, I think that's my assessment. I don't think I have much else to say. What I can say is that he wouldn't really take the subway, but he'd probably be like those apparitions that you see on the subway window sometimes. Sometimes? Do you see that sometimes? You know, like, oh my god, I saw something, and then it's like, oh, it's probably nothing, it's probably whatever. That's the Lost. That's what I imagine he'd do. But yeah, he doesn't sit. Lilith. So, Lilith's funny. Lilith is interesting. Because she does have a child with her. Granted, it's a demon child, but she's still kind of a mother, taking care of a child smaller than her. Is she allowed priority seating? I think she is. Like she like has like camping conceptions. She's the mother character. She has a bunch of baby familiars. And yeah, if you use box of friends, that's 2 babies, man. You gotta give her seat, man. She needs to care for those babies. Granted, they're demon babies, but I think they're still babies. Still counts. She's allowed priority seating. If an old lady comes up with a bunch of demons on her shoulders, man, you just gotta give her the seat, man. It's rude not to. You can like give her the seat and then freak out, but don't like freak out while sitting down. That's rude. Alright? Don't be an asshole in the subway. Keeper. Keeper is also... He's not bland as a character, but I just don't really get his purpose here. He's kind of like a scarecrow, kind of like the midpoint between Blue Baby and the Forgotten, I guess. He's like Isaac's rotting corpse, which would put him here, if that's really what he is. A rotting corpse. But I can't really say for certain. I don't really know the lore. If he is a rotting corpse, then he's allowed. It's the rules, man. If the corpse can, the rotting corpse also can. Alright, Apollyon. Apollion's evil. Apollyon unleashes like plagues and he's like a statue, so he doesn't budge. I don't have a lot to say about Apollyon, nobody does. But he is evil, that much I can say for certain. And also he's an immovable object, so nobody can even take him out. Not even Sanson. Maybe Sanson can. Dude, this tier list is weird. This tier list is so weird. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Forgotten. Also a weird character. How would a skeleton behave in the subway? How would a skeleton behave in the subway? That's a good question. In theory, since he's a corpse, also, I think he would also be allowed priority seating. Yeah, let's use the same rules as the other ones, right? So if these three are allowed, these two are allowed, this one's also allowed. Every single dead character is allowed priority seating because they are all injured. It's ridiculous, but it's the truth. That's all I can muster, man. I don't really know how to justify it. Maybe I should have thought about it before doing the stupid tier list. Anyway. Bethany. Bethany is also a good kid. But I think she's a bit less strict than Isaac. I think she knows she's a good kid, right? So I think she's like here. She sits down, but she's the first one to be like, oh my god, can you sit at my place, right? Judas waits for Bethany to give her place to the elderly, right? She just like sits down and is like, but she gets up whenever she needs to. She's not as awkward as Isaac, who is like afraid of being confronted for being sitting down, you know. She can sit down, she just, you know, doesn't. Yeah, I think it's something like this. As my head canon for her. Even though she's also like a good kid, and also she's probably in the same level as Lazarus in terms of like good kidness. Yeah. Alright, Jacob and Esau, that's interesting. So I think they're also here. I think they're also here. But they're two, so there is, you know, it's something that happens all the time when you're riding the subway with a friend or, you know, whoever, and there's only one spot left, and you're, you know, standing up, and one of the friends sit down. Jacob sits down. Jacob sits down. Esau stands up. And if someone appears, I think they both stand up. Because, I don't know, they're probably good kids as well. I mean, Jacob did like kill Esau, but that makes him a bad kid, but not necessarily a kid without manners. Those are two different things. So yeah, Jacob and Esau, they sit down occasionally. Jacob always hogs the seat. Esau always stands up, but if there is space for both of them, they both sit down probably. That's what I imagine. Alright, Tainted Isaac. He is allowed priority seating because he is injured. He's heavily injured. People are like, oh my god, are you okay? Sit in my place, come on, oh my god, sit here, sit here. So yeah, people are like, oh my god, do I want me to call the cops? And then you're like, something like that. 100%. I'm certain on this one. Maggie, dude. If Maggie is already the type to get into a fight, Tainted Maggie is just insane, man. I like to imagine that Tainted Maggie is like a crazier version of Maggie, like, right? A version that like got kinda cuckoo crazy after, you know, everything that went down with the husband and all that. So Tainted Maggie, man, if you're like, hey, can I sit there? She'd be like throwing bottles at you, and she throws a fucking cat at you, and then she like pepper sprays you. She's crazy, man. Don't mess with Tainted Maggie. Just ask one of these guys to give you the seat, man, because Tainted Maggie is gonna fuck you up if you ask her to get out of the way, man. I'm serious. Oh. Okay, Tainted Cain. Tainted Cain. Again, Cain is kind of bland, but Tainted Cain is a bit less bland. He's a collector. You know what Tainted Cain would be? And to understand, I think normal Cain as well. Yeah, I'm gonna put them both together because I just had an epiphany here about them. So, Cain and Tainted Cain would be wandering merchants in the subway. Do you guys have that? People who just walk around the subway selling things, selling like bottles of water or like wallets and casings. I mashed those two together for some reason. Fucking umbrellas during rainy days. They'd be walking around being like, umbrella, $5. Go get your umbrella. It's a lot cheaper than buying it by legal means, because this is illegal, by the way. But it's illegal, but not illegal to the point where they throw you in jail, just to the point where they like confiscate your stuff, your wares. I'm not sure if this happens everywhere. For a lot of people, for a lot of cultures, like this would probably be a crazy thought, but happens every time here. You can't travel through like public transport without merchandise, man. So yeah, I'm gonna use my reality as a measurement. But if wandering merchants don't exist in the public transport for you, let me know, man. Let me know if I just live in Crazy Town. I do. I live in Crazy Town. It's Brazil. Brazil's crazy. So maybe. But yeah. So that's what they'd be. They'd be selling shit. Tainted Cain is a bit different. Like, normal Cain is a salesman, Tainted Cain is like a hoarder, right? But same thing, right? Same thing. Okay, Tainted Judas, huh? Tainted Judas is an interesting one, because Tainted Judas is like a shadow being. And the cop-out answer is being like, shadow beings don't need to sit down. But I also like to think that Judas is like, the mind of Judas is controlling the thing. I think he'd be sitting down and just wouldn't get up, and people wouldn't come near him to like ask him to get up because he is a shadow being, he's like a shadow demon. I don't know, I don't have much of a read on him because he doesn't really have much in terms of like visible personalities. He's just a shadow guy. He's edgy. I don't know. Tainted Blue Baby, injured, dead, corpse. Also, he's pooping, which would probably get him kicked out of the subway. He wouldn't be able to board the bus. People wouldn't allow him. But just in case he somehow got there, I think he can sit in the priority seats, man. He's dead. Exactly the same as normal Blue Baby, but worse. Alright, Tainted Eve. See, Tainted Eve is a lot like normal Eve, but she's sadder, which makes it a bit harder. See, Tainted Eve is like kind of whatever. But Tainted Eve is like suffering. And I don't know, I think that makes it harder for everyone because people have to be like, excuse me, can you get out of the seat, please? And then she'll be like, ah! And then people are like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. She also has a demon inside of her, but yeah. That's what I think. I think her personality differs from Eve in the sense that she thinks she deserves to sit in the priority seat because she's so down bad, right? And then she's like, oh my god, I'm so sad. I'm gonna sit and people aren't gonna take me out of here because I'm really sad and I don't want to be sad while standing up. Do people like this even exist? I don't really know. I cried in the subway once, but it had a lot of open spots. It was like in the middle of the afternoon, so context was my first time getting mugged. I was scared. And then I cried. Guy had a fucking knife. It was really scary, man. It was really scary. I was in shock. Don't come to Brazil, kids. It's as bad as the memes tell you. It's as bad, if not worse. God. Yeah, so I cried in the subway once, but I didn't have to go through the dilemma of being like, well, do I stand up? Because all spots were open. And that's the only time I cried in the subway, so I don't really know. Alright. Samson. Tainted Samson. I don't really know how to evaluate this guy as well. Tainted Samson has a bit of a boomer energy. Maybe it's the hair, but it's what I imagine him to be. But also he's still Samson, so I think he has much of the same personality. I don't know. Like, in theory, since this is a very personality-based tier list, and the tainted characters are exactly the same character as the other ones, they are all probably together. Probably. But there's certain technicalities to this. But I do think he doesn't sit down, and I do think he gets into fights in the subway. Like fucking fist fights. It happens. It happens. Like, yeah. Exactly the same as Samson, but his fights get messy to the point where you have to like call security because, oh my god, people are like tearing each other apart here, and then it's like psh, 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 psh. That's what I imagine Tainted Samson would do. Normal Samson, he'd just get in arguments like, oh, go fuck yourself, you're bumping on me, yeah, go fuck yourself. This one would be just like psh. think. Right, here's a funny thing about Tainted Azazel. He doesn't fly. Tainted Azazel doesn't fly. Makes it a lot different than normal Azazel. Tainted Azazel doesn't seem like he's having much of a good time, to be honest. First of all, he's sneezing. He probably has like allergies or some sort of like flu or something. So I think he would sit down because he feels ill. And since he's a demon, I don't think he cares much for priority seats, right? It's just... Here's the difference between the two Azazels. This Azazel is having a grand old time just blasting people and just... I don't know, eating souls or whatever. I don't know what demons do. This Azazel is feeling bad. He's like sick. And he's like, oh my god, I just wanna... right? You know when you're like... I don't know, you have like a headache and you're at the subway and you're like, oh my fucking god. And then you're just like sitting in the subway and you're like, oh. I think that's how this Azazel would be like. But he's still a demon. I think if anyone comes try to get him out of his seat, he'd be like, that's the sneeze. Alright. So Tainted Eden, again, it's so hard to evaluate Eden. Tainted Eden is suffering, that much for certain. He's like in total agony and pain, and I think people would offer him seats for it. So I think it's probably some here. Because he's just like writhing and he's like, ah, yeah, and then he glitches out and then it's like, and I think people are like, oh my god, somebody help him, and then they give him priority seating. Technically injured, technically not. It's a bit confusing, but I think he's here. Tainted Lost is just Lost. It's just normal Lost, but old. I don't think there's much to say about this one. Tainted Lilith, pregnant, allowed to sit down. Easy as that. Dude, this is getting easy. Yeah, she's pregnant, she can't sit down. I mean, her baby is a demon baby, but she's pregnant. There's not really much you can do about it. I'm surprised at how many characters are down here, man. Alright, Keeper. I guess he's the same as the other Keeper. It's funny, it's really funny that I set up Cain as a wandering merchant, but not the Keeper, because the Keepers are the merchants in game. But yeah, no. I think he's more of a rotting corpse than a... Now, why is he related to coins? I don't really get it. I don't get the Keeper. I don't know what his place in the lore is supposed to be, but yeah, I think it's... let's leave it like that. That's probably good. Tainted Apollyon, same as normal Apollyon, but worse. He's evil, he unleashes forms of locusts. I mean, if he gets into like a buzz, somehow, people would be like, get out of here. That's what I imagine, because, you know, he's full of bugs. Nobody wants... He's full of bugs, huh? I keep having this thought of adding another category, another tier. But nah. For now, I'm just gonna leave you here. Alright, Tainted Forgotten. This one's interesting. There are two angles that I can go about this, right? First angle is like, well, he doesn't sit down because he's a ghost, but I think I've used that excuse too much, so let's use another analysis here, and I think Tainted Forgotten is allowed priority seating, not because he's dead and he's a skeleton, but because he's carrying something really inconvenient. So people would offer him the seat. He'd be like, oh my god, I'm holding this and I can't like hold on to the bars and I'm getting out of balance. And then people will be like, you can sit here if you want, it'll lighten your load. And then he's like, oh my god, thank you. And then he puts the skeleton on in the seat, and then he'd like sit beside it, or like he stand up and the skeleton will be in the seat. Something like this. That's what I imagine the Tainted Forgotten would do, right? He's basically a guy carrying a big backpack. And then people are like, you wanna put your backpack here? And he'd be like, thank you. So yeah, Tainted Forgotten is allowed priority seating because he's carrying something really heavy. Okay. Tainted Bethany, huh? This one's interesting. So Tainted Bethany, I can get two reads out of it. Either she's another Tainted Eve that's like, oh, we're all doomed, we're gonna die, nothing matters. Or she's kind of like, you know, those crackheads in the subway at midnight that are just like, the world's gonna end, I'm warning you, oh, the end is nigh, and then they be like, what? And I like to lean on the second one. But if she is the second one though, she would sit on the floor. No. Hang on. Let's add a row below this. Sits on the floor. She'd sit on the floor. She's a crackhead. 100% of the time. She's like, oh... either she's a crackhead or she's like a goth girl that like brings supposedly satanic books into like the graveyard at midnight. And I think in both cases she'd be sitting on the floor on the back of the bus, reading a creepy book, writing your name on her death note is what I imagine. So she sits on the floor even though she shouldn't. It's also not allowed to sit on the floor, but she does anyway. Since I had the sits on the floor category, I'm gonna update a few of my ratings. Yeah. I don't think they can... I think they're dead. I think they will just be left on the floor and they just die there and just be like dead there. Forgotten, I'm not sure where I should put him, but the keepers also are sitting on the floor. It's probably something like this. But yeah, again, I don't get Forgotten. I don't know how a skeleton would behave. Tainted Jacob would not sit because he is constantly being chased by a vengeful demon spirit of evil and that wants to like murder him and bring him to hell. So he doesn't have the luxury of sitting down at the bus. Because if he's sitting down and the dark Esau appears, he just has to dodge out of the way as fast as possible. So, yeah, he does not sit down. He just can't have that luxury. And Tainted Lazarus. This one is a bit interesting. This one's a bit interesting. Tainted Lazarus is technically allowed. He is, well, there is dead Lazarus, which is already injured and already allowed priority seating, and even alive Lazarus is like in a real bad spot. So I think he'd be allowed priority seating. People would be like, "Are you okay? Do you want to take my seat?" And then he'd be like, "Yes." Dude, we're done. We're done already. That was fast. We just blasted through him. It's funny how Judas is the only one that's like... the middle of the ground. I just couldn't think of anyone else to put there. Alright, well, that's the tier list. Oh my god, poor Judas, man. I don't know, this cast is like too insane, man. This cast is crazy. There's like demons and every single one of them is like almost dying or giving birth or suffering or already dead or like killing themselves. Dude, it's crazy. What a weird cast. These guys are the normal ones. These guys are the real heroes. If you meet one of them at the subway, be happy. Because they're normal. And Isaac. Isaac's also normal. Samson's a bit of a jerk, but he is normal. And these guys are illegal. But normal. Alright. Well, that's it. That's the tier list. If you're watching on YouTube, you better like, comment, and subscribe. I'm gonna keep doing that. They say it helps. It's funny though that I keep saying like, comment, and subscribe on every single stream because I think I'm gonna upload the VOD to YouTube, but then the VOD just never goes to YouTube. But this time's going. Like, comment, and subscribe, and smash the like button, and smash that bell button, and click on the share through Facebook, and then you send it to your grandma, and then she'll be like, I don't get it, and you'll be like, dude, it's pretty funny, and she'll be like, not really. So do that. It's an order. See ya.